entity or government, or both. Of course, since they're kind of the lines between those two are smeared, so they could be also responsible for the higher level ones as well that we can't describe. So the problem with crop circles is just nobody really knows. It's one of those things where there's too many evidence problems. We need more info. Somehow we need another huge clue. I mean, I know there's that crop circle that came out in England, and then it was not really a crop circle. It was just a bunch of writing, and it was done right next to one with an alien head. You look like a gray. And then they tried to find out what the alien writing was, and it appeared to be some old Freemason writing from centuries back that said, I can't remember exactly what it said or something, but the whole thing just kind of stinks a little bit. I think that previous caller was right, saying it could just be a big thing to get us all fighting and distracted and get this conspiracy theorists, bickering about things that we really don't know enough about. I mean, it's kind of like trying to argue about the weather tomorrow. We really don't know what it's going to be like because we have an evidence problem. So I don't know. So there's good and bad in the whole crop circle thing, but I mean, I just couldn't resist giving some input there. So there you go.
Yeah, no, thanks. That is a good point. Regardless, though, I'll say they are very interesting looking, and like I said, there is some very, I mean, some of the things they imprint in there are pretty, occultish, associated with Illuminati symbology. So, I mean, that's weird in itself. Regardless of who's doing it, it seems like they do have some knowledge of all, the whole conspiracy.
Yeah, yeah. So great show tonight, man, as usual.
All right, man. Yeah, thanks for calling in. That was great. Oh, and by the way, his channel actually is Hive Mind. Let me just go to it to make sure I don't screw it up. But it is actually, I have it right here, Hive Mind 1984. And I was actually watching. He did a video on some chemtrails today, different pictures of chemtrails, some trippy music. So I was actually watching that before we went on. So Hive Mind 1984 for that guy. I think he just started around 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, that's his channel.
Good deal. Good deal.
All right, well, thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, and that news story, Ed, if you don't mind me just saying one more thing quick here. I want to steal your thunder or your show time here. But I agree with you. That show coming out, when have you heard Fox News come out and say, oh, conspiracy theorists think that such and such is the case? I mean, do you really think Fox News gives a crap about conspiracy theorists? I mean, when have they ever come out and said, conspiracy theorists think that 9/11 might have been an inside job? No, they always have ridiculed us, torn us to shreds, built up false pictures of us and lied about us and so forth. Oh, and now all of a sudden they're going to come out and say, oh, the conspiracy theorists think NASA might be lying. No, this is a total trick, all this stuff. You got to basically just got this barrage of news all of a sudden come from 9/27 with those stupid military generals, which are obviously lying. I mean, they were just textbook, giving the signals of being liars and all their little mannerisms and behaviorisms and the way they were talking and their eye movements, everything, a bunch of stupid liars. I mean, so you've got this big barrage of alien news coming out. I mean, 2 stories today. So, it could be, like the other caller was saying, they've got us going so much with Hollywood, saying aliens this, aliens that. I mean, the whole alien picture they give is totally fake compared to what the real extraterrestrials that are out there, which resemble more ourselves than, grays or whatever. So, I mean, the whole thing is just, it does appear more and more that something like a blue beam could be. I'm not making predictions, but does look like it could be coming,
Oh man, yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, there's no way to make predictions. We don't want to tell everyone this is happening, within a few years. It's gonna happen in 2012. We're not making hardcore, concrete, absolute predictions. It's a strong possibility. And it is like they're incrementally just introducing more and more of this to get people acclimated to the thing that, any day now they could say we have a signal, from these extraterrestrials. I mean, that's amazing that they're actually, just look at that headline. I mean, this is like something like, you'd see in science fiction. Strange signal comes from alien planet, scientist says. And then we also have, it's actually in the title, conspiracy theorists confident. Altered imaging, NASA cover. It's just they're playing games with us, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't even need to go, and I haven't had time to go and look at the so-called science behind this signal coming from the planet. It's just some planet, way out. They don't even know specifically if it's a planet there. All this, I mean, I've reported on this and done, YouTube videos on this and shows on this. The extrasolar planet science is all a bunch of crap. It's the most loose, garbage, junk science ever. I mean, there's so many so-called planets that they've said they found, and then the mass media goes crazy. Oh my goodness, an Earth-like planet's been found. And then like 6 months later, Caltech or wherever they discovered it has to come out and say, oh no, oops, we screwed up. There is no planet. I mean, they don't even ever see a planet. They just detect a little light fluctuation in a star or something. It takes them like 8 months to try to figure out this teeny light fluctuation, which clearly could be instrumentation error or dust in the atmosphere and all kinds of different things. And they go from that little fluctuation to say, oh, there's this kind of planet, it has this mass and probably has water. And I mean, it's this biggest bunch of pseudoscientific crap ever. And that's all they're, and now they're saying, oh, there's a star system which has a signal coming from it, so it must be a planet. I mean, I'm going to go look into it, but it just smells bad, the whole thing. And I bet you what it is just some clown, astronomer coming up with a theory, and the mass media is basically saying, oh, it's fact, and they forget to mention that it's theory and it's just one guy, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's just like we were talking about, Ed, before your show, just like Jodie Foster in the movie Contact, that stupid book that Carl Sagan, who I think is another shill, Carl Sagan wrote, and it's just almost kind of funny. It's just the exact same story, So.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what do you think of the? I mean, do you think it's just junk science and they're just being ignorant by putting it out there, or do you think there's a? Well, I mean, this is kind of a silly question because I think I know the answer, but do you agree that there is a more sinister reason to why they're putting this information out there?
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, the academics, it's their fault. I mean, the mass media pumps up this pseudoscience like mad, but it's the academics' fault too. It's like half their fault and half the mass media's fault. I mean, the academics are truly doing crap science. They talk about the wobble of a star. They have these different techniques for trying to determine planets. And if you don't see a planet, you don't know if one's there. And if you can't even really detect light fluctuations or whatever that supposedly give you the information to finding the planet, it's all kinds of questionable science that gets them to this position. I mean, it's just more crap coming out of mainstream academia. It's just shocking, and nobody even knows. I mean, I was in academia, so I know firsthand how this goes. But just nobody, people trust academics. If people only knew what really goes on, I mean, the universities are the best example of robbing from the poor to feed the rich. I mean, you basically have taxpayers paying for the universities, and all the universities are now is government research labs and corporate research labs. I mean, we don't vote on what research they do. They just do all this genetically modified food and nanotech, research for all the huge corporations, and the poor people pay for it. Just rob the poor, feed the rich, just like out of the book, Robin Hood, the famous saying there. But yeah, if they're coming, like we were talking about before the show, Ed, how there's always these, groups of news stories that come out. Remember all the terrorist bombings in Iraq? They would all come out in big groups. Like, for 5 months there'd be a terrorist bombing every other day in Iraq, and then it just goes away like somebody flipped off a switch. Well, I mean, you can gauge news stories like this over and over. Remember the hurricanes? Certain years have hurricanes and then earthquakes. Remember earlier this year was earthquakes for 4 months. I mean, and then that all just went away. I mean, nobody ever notices these choreographed trends that happen in the mass media and with world events because everything's choreographed. So if they're coming out with something now, there's one or two possibilities. They're just playing around with us and having some fun, or they're just getting us ready for something in the future, most likely a blue beam. So I don't really know the answer to the question. It's just we have to be on guard for something,
Mm-hmm. No, that's the conclusion I've come to. It's either just huge distraction, misleading, or they are trying to just get us acclimated to this idea, this conditioning of this whole thing with a blue beam type thing. I mean, just like with 9/11, they had. I know I've used this example before, but it's just perfect, and we all remember 9/11, so I use it. But just like before 9/11, we had, the lone gunman TV show of the government piloting a plane and then going to crash it into the World Trade Center to start wars in the Middle East months before 9/11 happened. So you shouldn't just brush off things that you should really look at what the social engineers are putting out there for us to swallow up and then try to from there try to figure out exactly what they want to do with it. But ultimately, the only way you would know 100% if you were the social engineers, which we're not. So that's just
well, didn't Demolition Man the movie have this is like in the early '90s that something came out when nobody thought Schwarzenegger would be any kind of politician. He was just still some moron actor then. And they said in that movie that he was going to be the president of the United States, which he's one step away from now. I mean, it's amazing. And then wasn't, oh, speaking of Schwarzenegger, wasn't he making a movie when 9/11 happened, like finishing up the filming of a movie where planes hit the trade centers or something? And then they came out and said they're not going to release the film or something because of the events. I'm like, give me. I mean, I remember on the day of hearing that and saying, this is a little weird. Are they trying to create the conspiracy theory movement by making it so obvious?
Yep. And then you had those Illuminati card game with the. Remember that with the World Trade Center? I actually bought those cards.
Mm-hmm.
The World Trade Center getting hit by it looks. Well, I mean, just exactly like it looks like on 9/11. Then the Pentagon getting hit. It's just like, come on, people. They like you said, they're either just totally playing with us, or it's just much more sinister, or it's maybe a combination of the two.
Yep. Good points, man. Your show is awesome. It's again, I'm always happy you got that moron crayon eating twerp because it shows your show is getting a lot more traction than we all thought.
Yeah, that was strange. Exactly. I mean, and hey, I could look at it like, yay, my first prank caller. It's like it's a big thing. Yeah, my first prank caller.
Milestone.
Milestone. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. All right, man. Well,
yeah. Why is it that all the prank callers are it's totally demented? I mean, who could think that up?
Exactly.
That kind of a prank call.
Well, that's why. I mean, I was honestly wondering if maybe there was something either wrong with him, or it was just confusing. And I think that was the whole point, just to try to throw us off. So let's not even focus on that guy anymore. But
you got it, man.
All right, man. It's good hearing from you.
Well, you got just 2 minutes left. I'll let you go, man. Great show, Ed.
Cool.
Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. So yeah, that was as you all are familiar with if you're listening to the show, I'm sure. That was Jeffrey Grupp of antimatterradio.com. He's taking a hiatus for the most part from radio right now, working on several things. He has a lot of big things going on in his life, so yeah. But he's may not be doing radio, but I'm sure he's still definitely researching, and he sent me that. I'm really glad he sent me that link. I mean, I planned on doing this topic, yesterday, so then I logged onto my computer and I have this link from Jeff with the strange signal comes from alien planet, scientist says. Absolutely incredible. With that being said, thanks for everyone who called in.
90 seconds.
Thanks to Jeff. And then HiveMind 1984 is the channel. My website is blackhelicopterradio.com. If you want to listen to via Blog Talk, it's blogtalkradio.com/antimatterzone. I will be on Thursday, and I plan on doing another live, hopefully at the same time, as long as it's available. But I'll keep you all updated. Thank you all for listening. You all have a great evening.
there's that crop circle that came out in England, and then it was not really a crop circle. It was just a bunch of writing, and it was done right next to one with an alien head. You look like a gray. And then they tried to find out what the alien writing was, and it appeared to be some old Freemason writing from centuries back that said, I can't remember exactly what it said or something, but the whole thing just kind of stinks a little bit.
Some knowledge of all, the whole conspiracy.
Yeah. So great show tonight, man, as usual.
All right, man. Yeah, thanks for calling in. That was great. Oh, and by the way, his channel actually is Hive Mind. Let me just go to it to make sure I don't screw it up. But it is actually
entity or government, or both. Of course, since they're kind of the lines between those two are smeared, so they could be also responsible for the higher level ones as well that we can't describe. So the problem with crop circles is just nobody really knows. It's one of those things where there's too many evidence problems. We need more info. Somehow we need another huge clue. I mean, I know resist giving some input there. So there you go.
Yeah, no, thanks. That is a good point. Regardless, though, I'll say they are very interesting looking, and like I said, there is some very, I mean, some of the things they imprint in there are pretty, occultish, associated with Illuminati symbology. So, I mean, that's weird in itself. Regardless if he was doing it, it seems like they do have.
I think that previous caller was right, saying it could just be a big thing to get us all fighting and distracted and get this conspiracy theorists, bickering about things that we really don't know enough about. I mean, it's kind of like trying to argue about the weather tomorrow. I mean, we really don't know what it's going to be like because we have an evidence problem. So, I don't know. So there's good and bad in the whole crop circle thing, but I mean, it could